Hey there, everyone. It's Anthony from School Counselor Central in Intellispark, and today I'm going to be speaking with Patricia from Intellispark about some tips and tricks to start the year off right. Now, Patricia is the SVP of Program and Practice at Intellispark, which means she works really closely with all our school partners to help them come on board and be successful while working with Intellispark. So I brought her on because we all know last year was really rough for everyone. Things are constantly changing and not always for the better. So Trisha and I today are going to talk about some things that we can do to get the year started off on a positive way. So to start, Trisha, thank you for joining us. And I was wondering, what are some tips that you have for our educators to start this year off on a good foot, both for them and their students?
Thank you so much, Anthony. It's really good to be here talking to you, especially hoping we can really help our school partners to have a great next half of the school year. It's important to keep in mind that our students are counting on us to meet them where they are and to help them get through what, even in a normal year, would be the midwinter doldrums. Mid-year is always kind of a tough time to work through. They're anxious about experiencing more of the same in the second half of the school year, especially if they were struggling coming into the break. Just like us educators, they have had some time to think and reflect over the holiday break too about how they're really doing. So it's the ideal time to check in with them while they still might feeling just a little bit energized and maybe hopeful about the potential for a fresh start in the new year. It's a good time to just ask them how they're doing, if they've had ideas for how staff can help them make some positive changes or improvements in the second half of the year. Students are really craving this kind of engagement right now, especially the opportunity to use their own voice during what is an incredibly isolating time, certainly for all of us, but especially for this very sensitive age group. Some schools with whom we are partnering are asking students to complete a quick survey to assess how the students are feeling on a number of dimensions. And then they're putting plans in place to try and move the needle for kids, responding to what they're hearing from them and trying to make a difference for them in the second half of the school year.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think it's great that schools are taking more time to hear from their students and their communities, because that's how we build those relationships and get it kind of like we get to read the room and see how everyone's doing. So I think that's awesome. How are the schools that are doing this implementing the surveys? Do they feel that they're going to be able to do it in a timely fashion so that they can effectively make change within the school year? What tips do you have for making this goal more achievable?
Yeah, that's a really important point, because this could easily feel like an incredibly daunting task on top of everything else that they're doing. But the reality, and especially for counselors, is that this is the kind of effort that's at the heart of their work right now. So our hope is with a little bit of structure and focus, we can help them achieve it to a great effect. And so we're seeing schools respond in two different ways to the information that they're collecting. First, where they see specific students struggling deeply, they're making a point to engage those students right away, both to ensure those students know that they are cared for, kind of most critically, and then to take immediate actions on the most critical issues. So those could be issues of well-being related to food or shelter. Perhaps it's social emotional needs or specific academic needs or technical needs around even just getting online. Immediately connecting students with resources gives them hope and stems this negative momentum and the sense of a downward spiral. And many need that lifeline now more than ever. But then where schools are seeing more systemic changes across a wide array of students, maybe broader challenges of self-management, lack of persistence in response to disappointment or failure, or very likely what a lot of schools are seeing is just low engagement across the broader population of students. They're exploring a handful of global programmatic strategies that can be embraced across the school. Certainly, those global interventions need to be very targeted, very few, very focused in order to be impactful and to drive a measurable change. But we know that consistency across the school, across the classrooms, and just a few impactful strategies will give focus to staff and is more likely to be felt across the student body. You know, my heart just sank this week when one of our school partners shared that many students in her school are reporting that the most challenging thing about distance learning is that their teachers have stopped smiling. If smiles, I mean, it brings tears to my eyes, think about it. But if smiles and laughter and fun are part of our daily interaction with our students, it will have a positive ripple effect by conveying that things just aren't as bad as they seem. And this is what will keep students coming back to our classes online or in person. You know, just think of how the tone of a student's day would change if every educator would open their class by greeting them with a smile and ideally telling them how happy they are just to see them. Just focusing on these welcoming routines in every classroom to increase hope, optimism, and happiness across the school could be huge. So let's help our students focus on simple, positive things like knowing people care about them and that things are going to be okay. These are small but impactful actions that could have great effect if taken effectively across the school community. I will just add that some of these same schools to which I'm referring do plan to redeploy the same surveys again in the spring to see if they've been able to move the needle on the feedback they're receiving from students mid-year. Hopefully they'll see great return on these efforts. But one way or another, they're going to learn a lot about what it takes to support their students. And without doubt, students will become more optimistic, knowing that their teachers are taking time to hear them and embracing new approaches that might make a difference in their day-to-day experiencing. It's a quiet way for educators to model a responsive learning environment.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think you made a lot of really good points there, and it's so sad to hear that example about that student. That's definitely more common than we like right now with everything. So I was just wondering though, my role, I feel like, I'm sure a lot of counselors watching this are like, yep, my role is always changing, sometimes day to day even, with everything going on right now. I was just wondering, what do you think would be the best way to efficiently deploy these surveys and collect results and figure out a plan of action mid-year? You know, like what approach specifically do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that this could be a lot to deploy if there isn't already a process in place. But in Intellispark, we are able to bring partners on board 1 week. And if they're comfortable with the surveys which we have, they're able to push out the surveys on one day and then read the responses from students and even start to see trends across, you know, selected groups. They can slice and dice as soon as they've been completed, sometimes even in the same day. So it feeds right back into our platform. Some schools start by surveying a small group just to get a feel for the process. And then they move on to the whole grade, the whole school, sometimes multiple schools in the district, particularly middle school and high school students. We offer 4 different surveys that students can complete in about 10 minutes each on any mobile device or computer. The surveys are intended to provide quick indicators of how a student is doing on a range of dimensions, including social and emotional well-being, their sense of connection, engagement, and belonging to the school community, the quality and helpfulness of their peer and adult relationships. And then we have one called the Get to Know Me survey, which helps students get to know a student's perceived strengths, passions, interests, current needs, and even what types of classroom strategies they have found most helpful, which is fantastic because if we know what's working in one class from what a student has to say, other teachers can see that and leverage that in their own classes and maybe try it out. It might work for other students as well who have similar learning styles. These surveys can either reaffirm the concerns that the team already has about certain students, and maybe they're already taking action on it. So it can be very reaffirming, but it can also identify students that may not have been on their radar. You know, things are changing all the time for students and could be very different now than they were in September. Our hope is that, especially for those students who are struggling right now, we're giving tools to schools that'll help them bring focus to their efforts So at least a few things can improve for students by the springtime.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think that was a great strategy there for everybody. I think that's awesome. It's crazy that all that's right there on Intellispark for them to do. I think that's awesome. So we're out of time for today. I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I wanted to say thank you for joining us and sharing that. It was very insightful. I hope everyone watching got as much out of it as I did. And just a reminder, we'll be back next week with more about this. And in the meantime, I'll post it below. Intellispark's info will be right below. Go click on it and go check it out. Thank you again for your time, Patricia, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Anthony. My pleasure.
Bye-bye.